Would you like to know more? Welcome back to another episode of Warmaster Podcast Adventures in 3D Printing. Today we are looking at some March 2020, I believe. March 2021 Forest Dragon Bretonians, and this is I guess it's a kind of a Grail reliquary. That's a really hard word to pronounce. Reliquary. That may not even be right, but I've done my best. So we got some guy holding the Holy Grail here. Some dead fella. No wrapping. He's going to be eaten by flies and stuff, wouldn't he? I guess. So he's. I do like it though. I mean, it's meant to be fantasy, isn't it? We're meant to be having fun. So he's holding his big Grail in his big bed. He's got a little Grail shield on the front. He's been dragged along by these four Grail monks. One of them here's got a unicorn shield. And so, Mr. Support there. I should change my name to Mr. Support there. So this is a nice thing. You add this to your peasants to make your peasants good, although the price of this said upgrade is a little bit too rich for my blood now, because it makes peasants from cheap chaff into kind of a bit expensive chaff. So an interesting choice in the game now. They were a bit of an auto-include because obviously being Bretonians, they don't count towards break, so you can fire them away. Whatever damage they do is a bonus, and as long as you're not playing a game that finishes on victory points, God's job's a good one. So a nice thing, certainly a bit more thematic than just a bit of cross, which most people have made out of a couple of matchsticks or something, just to add to the unit. But this is good. I like this. And then we have this fella here. It's another monk with a sword. So this, I guess, is the alternative. If you don't want this big thing in your unit of Grail Knights, in your unit of peasants, you can just add this to a unit of peasants, and that is the kind of the holy object that's giving them the fanatical buff. So this would be like, I don't know, the Excalibur or something, wouldn't they? He's brought some holy sword. That's an interesting choice. Not quite so grand as this one, but I think you can only have one per army, so there's no way you could have two of these. You can have this one as a mysterious hero, I guess, although he doesn't look very knightly. Okay, and then we've got Squires. So what I did with the Squires is I printed 2 units with one of each command. So if we start with the command, and then we'll go through the remaining 5 strips. So maybe that guy is a Squire, isn't he? Because he's got the kind of, maybe it's a Squire vibe he's going for. Yeah, could well be. So we have here Squires. Now Squires are an interesting choice in Bretonian light cavalry, so obviously have light cavalry pluses and minuses. A copy of Elven Reavers, so 90 points. They have a 30 centimeter shooting attack, 3 regular attacks, 3 hits, and 6 up armor. They obviously get better with the light cavalry rules, but these fellas don't count toward break, so they're highly exploitable. And in one recent-ish tournament, Jan has brought a Bretonian army, which was basically an army of Squires, because cavalry are decent, and cavalry that don't count towards break sound very decent. Luckily, we weren't using the extra light cavalry rules, else they would just be completely bonkers, I believe. So this is the leader model. We have a musician here blowing a horn. I think they had a lot of supports, these fellas. I know I'm beginning to sound a little bit like a broken record, but it is definitely a thing that it's a kind of a barrier to me printing. So I think the kind of you arrange your your slicing software, and you so you load everything into that and you slice, then you go and start printing, and the whole process of slicing and printing is no more than a couple of hours, and it's not that labor intensive. But then you need to have you probably need to have an hour realistically to get everything washed, and then to get everything cleaned up and then cured, and that's for a plate that only does 2 or 3 units. So that tends to be where my stumbling block is, if I'm being honest. It's not printing. I could probably do 4 or 5 runs a day of printing, but it ain't that straightforward. So yeah, that is what I find is the constraint on time that prevents me printing more than I would like. And I don't have that same issue on the FDM printing, which I will talk about again, I promise, soon, because that's something that I'm getting well into. So this is the alternative leader model. Instead of a sword, he's got a kind of, a spear that he's going to launch at people. They have bows. Yeah, he's got a sword on his back. And he's got the horn there. So I like that variant post. So even if you've only got 2 variants here, that's plenty enough for Squires. I mean, yeah, and they don't need banners. The Squires shouldn't be carrying banners, really. It's not really the done thing. The knights carry banners, not Squires. Peasants and stuff should really have banners anyway. Either, I wouldn't have thought. So now we're into the troop model. So I printed one of each. I printed 2 of these each off, but I'm only going to show one because obviously the others are just copies. And we've moved to the ABS like Elegoo instead of the water washable stuff. And I am forgoing the undercoating and just going straight to showing them in the grey. So obviously that will mean a little bit less detail is visible. Okay, so these are very handsome models. Very handsome models. Let's check on some Ben. That's all right. It's quite difficult to say new stuff about humans riding horses. But you could definitely use these for games outside Warmaster. You could use these in some kind of, I mean, they've got a very Robin Hoodie vibe, haven't they, going on, if you wanted to use them in a game like that, or some kind of English Civil War type period. I don't know. The world is your oyster when you've got one of these 3D printers. We have got a banner here, but it is quite a minor banner. That's kind of what you'd have, just a... There is a term for this kind of banner. The French used to carry them, didn't they, with the lancers. The lancers had these kind of banners, which is just basically a bit of cloth tied to the pole. Okay, and then 2 more to go. So the miniatures are pretty standard. So you mean they've all got spears, they've all got bows. They're all on horses. So, and finally, the last one here. So these are all available. I think they were in the March pack, so that might still be available. Or I know that Forest Dragon are now moving over. I think it might actually be moving over to Gumroad as a place to kind of download and to buy miniatures from. So if you're interested in Bretonnian stuff, yeah, here you go. And I believe the next one he's doing is High Elves. After he finishes off the Bretonnians, which are nearly done, I believe. Okay, so I will speak to you again next time.